Hello, and welcome to another episode of Finding Serenity in the Midst of Chaos podcast. Today, we're talking about self love, the number one thing most self care routines won't even talk about. So stay tuned. Yesterday was Valentine's Day, and all over the world, all over people have celebrated this momentous day with whoever they have in their life at that moment in time. One thing that reminds me of that we don't often do well. I don't think it ever occurs to many people at all. It hasn't
Okay,
occurred to me for a long, long time.
right.
Is to love yourself.
Yes, we've touched on this
We did touch
other
on
times.
this
So if
on the podcast
episode
before.
searchers are welcome to scan through
Yeah.
previous episodes and see if they can find the one that we've talked about before. But yeah, let's have a up to date and refresh talk about that
Yeah, I
today. Yeah,
think
loving
because
yourself. It
really
sounds a bit weird, but
I know it sounds a bit weird, and it's not. It's very counterintuitive, isn't it? It's we are always here to either love other people or to be loved by other people, and of
hmm,
course, this is one of the number one things that we do want to be loved and cared for and cared about with other people. But of course, if we don't have that love for ourselves in the first place, I think that's where everything starts to go wrong a little bit, and we don't even realize this. And like most people I work with, the professional, ambitious women who work hard for other people, who work hard all day long for their families, for their bosses, for their job. Um, they even when they finished everything,
yes,
they still add things to their to-do list.
yeah,
And when you speak to them, oh, I don't have time for self-care, I don't have time for this, I don't
mm,
have time for that. And well, one of the main reasons is that when you have very low self-esteem and when you believe that you're not worthy of time off or resting or whatever, you're not obviously
mm,
thinking this consciously, but when you are thinking when you believe this subconsciously, what you end up doing, you almost without knowing torture
mm,
yourself, you know.
okay, okay,
So
yeah.
becoming
Um,
consciously aware of how much we love or not love ourselves and how much we ought to love ourselves is just a very interesting topic that only came into my life a few years ago. And
okay,
there is a lot of work that I still need to do for sure. But you've got to start from somewhere, haven't we? So this is what I
yeah.
wanted to bring to the awareness of everybody. Self-care is one thing, and so when we think about self-care, we think about going to a spa day and
Mm.
going to the pub with the friends or whatever it might be, or just having a bath at night and
Yeah,
whatever the self-care looks like for everybody. But there is a lot more to it than that.
yeah, good. I'm glad you said that. And
Yeah.
I kind of pick up on the what you said about it's subconscious. We don't plan. Yeah, whoever sits down and plans, excuse me. Oh, I don't have time for this, or yeah, you don't sit down and write all these negative things down in a conscious way, but they're just
No.
there in your subconscious. And then the other thought I just had listening to you there was. You know, we're often brought up to, you must love other people as you love yourself.
Hmm.
But
All right. Okay.
yeah, but that's what we're talking about now. That well,
Hmm.
you wouldn't want to do that because, if you're not loving yourself, you don't want to treat other people. And we've said the converse, haven't we? You wouldn't
Mm,
speak to your best friend in the way that you
mm.
speak to yourself. So, there's a few sort of age-old things that we've grown up believing. Yeah.
There is, and I just pick up on what you just said as well, though. And as we know, how we treat others is a projection of our inner world. And if somebody's treating other people quite badly most of the time, that's again a reflection of how they are feeling. And if you
Yeah.
don't have that self-love and
Mm,
self-worth and
yeah.
whatever, then that's you're going to project to other people. And this
Yes.
is why we were talking about last week, personal development. This is why
Yeah.
your self-development is important, because when you start to feel better in yourself, when you have a higher self-esteem, when you start believing that you are worthy and deserving of everything that you have,
Mm,
um, you're gonna you're gonna start to treat other people in that way as well. So I don't know if you heard this expression, hurt people. And if you're hurt and if you're believing that you're not worthy of the success and all the care that you should be giving yourself, then you're not going to care for yourself. And that's the fundamental thing. People go on about self-care, you know, it's
Yeah.
fine. And it's not because we don't have the time or the energy for the
Yeah.
self-care, because we don't allow ourselves the time and the energy because we are too busy subconsciously torturing ourselves.
Amazing. Yeah, great. Well, that's a lot to think about, and
That's a lot to
that's
think
really
about.
good. And that, that should take us forward a little bit because yeah, I can identify with that as well. And you think, oh well, loving myself is selfish, and I mustn't be selfish. But we're not
Mm.
really talking about that. You've rephrased it in a way that's made it important because if we want to be, if we want others to see what we want them to see, and we want to be to others a positive influence and whatever, we've got to start here, haven't we, in
Yeah, we got to
ourselves? I
start
think
from.
that's what I'm hearing from what you're
Mm.
saying.
And people think that nobody appreciates me, nobody loves me. But if you're not loving yourself, why should you expect other people to love you and appreciate you and respect you and so forth? That's a big thing to consider as well. And you're right. We don't normally. I don't know. You said you must love others as you love yourself, but that's not something that I've ever heard from anyone
Oh,
before.
okay. All right. Yeah.
And it's good that you perhaps grew up with that sort of
Yeah.
premise, but it's again, it's not so obvious. We don't
Yeah.
necessarily grow up with it, we don't necessarily apply it in many ways.
Yeah.
We are so here to torture ourselves, literally,
Mm.
to adding stuff to the to-do list,
Yeah.
work till we drop, and work even when we
Mm.
have no energy. And then and then
Yeah.
listen to this. Then
Right.
what's most of the people go and do is that when they are feeling bad, when they are feeling tired, when they need to be resting, they spend the time feeling guilty about feeling tired and
Yeah.
poorly, if that makes
Yeah. So
sense.
it's just It's the rubbish is accumulating here, isn't
Mm.
it? You're just pouring dustbin after dustbin over
And
yourself,
then also,
really.
yeah, self-judgment is beating yourself up and
Mm.
sabotaging your own success, all because you don't fundamentally love yourself enough, or because you don't believe you're deserving of the
Mm.
success that you want. So what is the
Wow.
remedy, you're probably wondering now?
Oh, I'm pleased you've got one, Chulai, because this was not looking good. Our listeners are thinking, where are you taking me here? Well, on this podcast, we might take you down to the bottom, but we bring you back up to the
Yeah.
top. And that's
And
what we're going to do now.
it's not very often that we take people down to the bottom, but we've got to
This is
start
true.
with some awareness, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely. We need to understand where we are and be real and just admit it. Just say, all right, I'm not in a great place, but
mm,
there is a way forward. And that's where we're here to help folks, isn't
yeah,
it? To
yeah.
move in that direction. So yeah, here we go.
And the change always starts with acknowledgement of where you are in the first place, accepting this is where I am, and maybe today I've been in a low place, but it doesn't have to continue. We don't have to stay there. We don't have to dwell on it. We don't have to,
Sure.
stew
Yeah.
over it, if you like. All we have to do
Yeah.
is to be aware and move on from it.
Totally agree. Yeah.
And
Perfect.
how do we move on from that? Well, awareness is the first step to transformation, providing you take the next step to do something about it. Well, you will find so many resources out there, even on YouTube, it's in everywhere, about self-love practices and whatever. But, even before that, what is it that you would do for someone that you love in the first place?
Okay. Yeah. Good one. Yeah. See what you're going with that.
And
Yes.
then sit down and think about, what if I did that to myself? You would
Yeah.
say to your child, I love you, every day, if you have the opportunity, or when you find the opportunity, or when you're
Sure.
sending them off to school or whatever.
Mm.
Why wouldn't you say that to yourself? Start with that.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. That's
And
that's a good little picture. I'm a pictures man. I like a little illustration and a picture
yeah,
to go with them. Yeah. How would you treat your children? That's a good example and a good
hmm,
guidance as to
yeah.
how you then ought to be treating yourself. Yeah.
Mm. And
Yeah. I
then
like that.
is, regardless of what age they are, you would tell them they always look beautiful, no matter
Mm.
how, whether they have teenager spots, whether whatever, they're always beautiful in your eyes.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you say that to yourself? Because there's no reason why you should be any different. you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
You can say to yourself, I look beautiful today. I love myself today. I know it sounds really strange and kind of like, wow. But that's the whole work. This is
Yeah.
where the work starts, and this is how we change our lives, by being in this self-love. Because I mean, I can't tell you enough how much I've practiced in the past year and how much it changed how I feel about everything and how I am being in the world.
Mm.
And I recommend it to anybody because, just like the part of the self-development that we do, it's part of the fundamental part of the work that we do because, otherwise you will be torturing yourself no matter how many spa days you might have. If you're
Mm.
beating yourself up inside, that's not going to have
Mm.
any effect on you, no matter how many baths and hot tubs you may be in.
Right. Yeah.
Self-care, you're not going to actually benefit from that if you're beating up yourself and if you're constantly overthinking everything and not sleeping at night and just analyzing everything and feeling anxious while you're
Yeah.
in the hot tub. Then forget it.
Mm. Yes.
Don't
Yeah.
even waste your
That's
time doing it, because until we change the inside, nothing
mm.
on the outside will change. And I think I'll leave it at that this week because there's a lot to chew on from this week's
Oh,
conversation.
okay, that's absolutely fine. And yeah, I'm thinking all sorts of things here. Yeah, yeah, my
Yeah.
brain's spinning a bit, but it's yeah, it's got to start with you. And I like this business about starting on the inside and then
Mm.
the outside. I'm thinking you kind of are projecting. We are transmitting. There's a good radio word for me.
Oh yeah,
We are
transmitter.
transmitters. Do we want
Yes.
to be transmitting a good sound or a good picture, or have we really given up on ourselves? And nobody needs to give up on
I love
themselves.
I love that you've just brought that up, and it's all about the frequency that we are actually in.
Oh, love it.
The
The
frequency and
frequency.
the frequency that we are operating at, and people are picking up on that. And if
Yeah.
people around you are also treating you in that way, the frequencies that you're sending clearly is sending the wrong signal. Or
I love
perhaps
it. That's a great radio illustration.
I
That
know,
appeals to
or
me. Yeah.
perhaps it's just the signals that you need to be aware of. And I guess maybe, I just heard this phrase the other week. There's nothing is ever going wrong. It's just there to teach you something. It's that there to show you what you need to be more aware of. And everything is actually going right. It's not going the way you want it to at that point in time, but it's actually
Yeah.
going right. So
Yeah, ultimately leading you to
yes,
something that's better that
yeah,
at the end of the day you'll be able to say, well, yeah, I'm glad I went through that. I'm glad I'm where I'm at now. It's much better than where I was before. That's
exactly. Yeah,
great. All right, thanks, Chulite.
perfect.
It's been another great chat, and I can't wait to meet again next week and have another good chat about something. And listeners, tell your friends, tell your family,
Oh
because
yes,
if you're benefiting, other people benefit. And please do subscribe to the YouTube channel, which you can find. You may have already been watching us from that channel. So
yes,
spread the word, let other people know.
yes. Thank you, Ian. See you next week.